Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interest session from Early Music America. We want to thank you all for joining us today as we talk about singing and playing online in meaningful ways with our presenter, Adam Gilbert. And ahead of the presentation, just a reminder, if you've never used Zoom and you're joining us via Zoom, we'll be taking our questions to the Q&A feature, which you can use by clicking the Q&A button. You can also chat using the chat window. And if you have questions throughout, you can also send those to myself as the host or Karen Brooks, EMA's executive director, through the chat menu if you have technical problems throughout the call. My name is David Wood. I'm the Special Projects Manager from Early Music America. And that's how we'll be handling that on the Zoom side. If you're joining us via Facebook Live, you can type questions into the comments section, and we'll try to address those as much as possible as they come, but we'll be reserving time at the end of the presentation to address any additional questions that you might have at the very end. We'd like to draw your attention to the Early Music America Relief Fund. The Relief Fund is still active at earlymusicamerica.org. You can find it on the home page in our slider and also on our Responding to COVID-19 page. We have almost raised $95,000 and our goal is $100,000. I want to thank everyone who has donated so far. And you are helping with every single dollar to support early musicians in need. EMA is keeping none of that money, and that's all going toward grants to early musicians in need at this time. You can find out about our relief fund and much more of Early Music America's activities, as well as what's going on in the early music community in North America and beyond, when you follow us on our various social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. This particular interest session will also be archived on our YouTube channel, along with previous interest sessions and other videos from Early Music America. And you can also get our newsletter by signing up either with a text to 42828, just type early music all together when you text, and that'll help start up your email subscription, or you can use the button at the bottom of earlymusicamerica.org. So now we'd like to welcome our guests for today, our presenter, Adam Knight Gilbert of the USC Thornton School of Music, who will be talking with us today about some of the ways that he and they have come along with making music during this time of virtual music making together. So Adam, thanks once again for doing another one of these interest sessions for you. And I know we're all looking forward to seeing what you've come up with.
Hey, thank you, David, and thank you, Karen, and thank you, Early Music America. And you guys heard just another $5,000. This is like one of those campaigns on TV. I won't do that. Good morning, everybody. I thought I'd just say, first of all, I'm not a web tutorial. I just play one on TV. This is all new to me, like as with everybody, but we've been learning a few things as we go along the way. And I thought I'd just share some of those. And it's mostly about possibilities of what you can do for using music to play together, sing together, even though we can't play and sing together. So you'll just see my little image here. The world is turned upside down. There we go. In March 6th at USC, we played our first and last live concert of the semester. And as we were finishing the concert, we heard the doors were closing down. You've all been there. And I was thinking, what am I going to do? And I sort of spent the next week, well, okay, we're going to have some master classes. We'll figure out some way. And the next thing I noticed was that, let me see if I think I put my slide in the wrong order. This is what I wanted you to see. My friend Aki Nishiguchi, who is a Dr. Aki Nishiguchi from USC, sent me a slide of her students at Diamond Bar High School Performing Arts Academy playing a string quartet by Mendelssohn while I was wondering what to do. And I just thought I'd show you a little bit of this. Some of you have seen it already. exactly early music, although it's getting there. But the point was she was designing a recital for coming in 3 weeks, and they did a virtual recital. And it made me think, okay, this is actually, people have already been doing this. It's time for us to start doing recordings. So I started thinking about proof of concept recordings, things that were simple enough for us to start. And based on that, we ended up having an entire live recital on May 15th of an hour long of music we'd made since the close down. And also on May 1st, San Francisco Early Music Society started giving workshops, and we've been having upwards up to 80 people come to an hour-long session and playing music along. And we've been learning a lot, and we found out people are willing to do it, and it can be meaningful and engaging. So let's talk about a few things. First of all, we can't make music together, but we can make music together. We can record things remotely for collaboration. And there are a lot of possibilities here. We can perform together remotely, but not simultaneously. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today, especially. One thing you can do is you can actually think about teaching with more detail. Instead of me just saying, hey guys, I'll look at measure 17, I can actually show you on the screen. And I can do funny things with measure 17 as well. We can prepare target additions and examples. And as a matter of fact, I think this is very important, is thinking about what you want people to see on the screen and how you want them to perform things. We can focus on issues like temperament, tuning, solmization, analysis, historical pronunciation, etc. By the way, I'm just going down this checklist very quickly. We'll get on to other stuff after a bit. Some of you have asked what resources are there and asked about specific things. There is Jamkazam. Jamkazam is an audio program where you can actually collaborate fairly closely in time and play together, but you need external equipment, external mics. You need a really good wired internet to make sure there's no latency and delay. So it's not something I'm going to talk about today, but I'm working on it myself and have hopes for somewhere working along the way with it. Some folks are using Acapella, which is designed for Instagram, for making square movies of people playing together, square images, and that works really well. We've been using at home iMovie, and in the Thornton Early Music School, we've been using Final Cut Pro. There are a number of resources. Most of them are above my pay grade to explain today, so that will be a great ongoing conversation, and is, but I'm going to talk specifically about how we use music online, images and videos, etc. But let's talk about some other things about making music online. There are different types. First of all, a lot of people are giving master classes and lessons. You can give a master class and a lesson. This has been going on for years already, and you have less problems if it's just two of you. But even with a larger group, you can drill together. You can drill music at the same time or in alternation, and I'll talk about that and give an example in a few minutes. You can unmute individual performers if you want to. However, when you have a group of, say, 60 people, it really works pretty well only if you've choreographed it ahead. Oh, so-and-so is going to unmute their video when you want them to demonstrate something. Otherwise, you get 60 people deciding who's going to unmute, and it gets kind of bumbling. So one of the great things we've been doing is using audio and video files for group participation. And I'm speaking about Zoom because that's our platform. There are other platforms. The way we do this are we make videos and audios for people to perform along that they can hear, but the performers are muted. This also can be done as live recordings, and the performers are muted along. So I'll mostly talk about that today. There are numerous options for you recording yourselves. There's Audacity, in which you make a recording of your own live recording and you can edit it. I hear that Mio Aoki is doing really nice things with that, and she'll be giving a SFEM's workshop this weekend. So you might check that out. As I said, Final Cut Pro, iMovie. Mio also is using iPad, and you can use the iPad directly on the screen to be very spontaneous and use your iPad pencil to show things, etc. But I thought I'd say just really quickly, what's a checklist to go down? First of all, have your computer plugged in. The very first one I did for EMA, my computer went unplugged and my computer went out of battery, and I had to take 5 minutes to charge again before I could come back. Check your internet speed and have a cellular hotspot. I have my phone next to me ready to go in case the internet gets bad. You might have on your computer Ookla internet speed test. I've given you the link here. It's not a guarantee your net's going to be good, but you'll find out if it's bad. It shows you how fast your internet is. Be either wired if you can or close to a modem. Use a decent mic. I'm using a Samson Go mic. It's about $45. It's better than just my regular mic, but no matter what, use some kind of headphones and mic. Otherwise, you'll hear people talking in at you. It's just much better when you use a mic and people hear you better. If you're in Zoom, you can go and enable the option for turn on original sound. This is really important if you're playing an instrument, because if you play a recorder and you don't have original sound on, it thinks the recorder is noise and goes tick, 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 tick. If you turn on original sound, you'll get a much better thing. Do a sound check along with that. Make sure you're not too close or far from the mic. When you are sharing on Zoom, choose share computer sound when you're sharing the screen, because otherwise you have to go in and then start over and unshare and start back again. But also share from the program or document. Don't share your computer screen. Everybody will see all your emails, your personal business, and the quality won't be as good as the images and sound in the programs. And remember this, that only open documents can be shared. I can't share one document and then open another. I have to make sure it's already open. So just a few other thoughts before we get to the meat. One, think about your content. Are there copyright issues? I am doing everything that I make for online tutorials now is made for my own editions, because I don't want copyright issues. You can use things with permission, but if it's going out there and for money, etc., this is a great time to think about, well, maybe I should make my own editions. Maybe you don't have to, etc. You can get permission, but it's definitely an issue to consider. Also, it's great to have somebody like David Simmons Wood as a moderator or writing shotgun to man the chat box. If I have 60 people and I have to look at the chat box every second, it's going to slow me down. David will, by the way, today, if he sees a question that has to be answered from the chat box, he's going to interrupt me. Also, it's really important to consider a balance between speaking and using images and examples of music. In a classroom, you might speak for a while, et cetera, and have an image on the screen. But if you're in a Zoom environment or somewhere online environment, if you're talking about something, people should be seeing it. And I'm breaking that rule right now by having this endless bullet points, old-fashioned PowerPoint. We'll skip it soon, but you can really think about how much am I talking before we start to play? Am I talking about something and they don't see the image? Why don't they see the image? It's a great opportunity to think about how you're going to use image and sound while you're speaking. Different resources. As I said, iPads can be great if you're using the pencil and you can show them exactly what's on your screen. I use Keynote. Other folks use PowerPoint. They can be used in various ways with varying degrees of fluidity and spontaneity. But the less you have to stop sharing your device, the more smooth things will go. So if I say, oh, let me go from this program over to iTunes, then there's a time lag. You lose your cursor, and iTunes is bringing sound in from the internet and then going back out again. So everything I have loaded on my Keynote tends to work more smoothly. Just that's something I keep in mind. So my little rule here, I love to be spontaneous, but the more I plan it to a T, the freer I can seem to be. You get the idea, right? Okay, so another issue is scholarly versus remote performing editions. If I have a lovely scholarly edition with a fermata, and I want people to hold it twice as long, and I give them a video of that music or an audio, it's not going to do that. I have to actually make that audio exactly how I want it performed. So when I see fermatas now, if I want to hold it twice as long, I just actually notate it as twice as long in my score for performing. So I already showed you our Diamond Bar folks. Based on the Diamond Bar folks, we did our first recordings with some simpler pieces by proof of concept. Can we do this? And here's our second recording of in the style of this. Madre de peccatori, Vergine pura, sopra de coi angeli esaltata, benedetta sopra ogni creatura, al peccator fedel fermato vocata, ricevi pregi miei, Madre benigna. Great. So we edited that by taking the original facsimile from 1563 and making an edition of it. This is from my student Jae Won Kim. Made a performing edition of the verses as they would sing it. And then what I did, and this is kind of early experimenting, I made a screen movie of Finale. I didn't have the text yet. I just wanted them to have something to sing along with. And this is actually the piece with a movie made from QuickTime from Finale. And I've also, and I'll get into this farther, this is in a mean tone temperament. So you're going to, and it's at 4:15. So here's just a little bit of snippet. You're going to hear this and then I'll play you them again. You'll see how close they followed this.
Madre de peccatori, Vergine pura, sopra de cor angeli te saltata, benedetta sopra ogni creatura.
You get the idea. For this, we used Final Cut Pro, but you can use other programs for this as well. So here's another example. One of the things my singer said, well, we need to have a pitch. So we started adding a pitched metronome marking at the beginning as a count in. And one of the problems with Finale is if you make a metronome marking in Finale, it can give you a click, but when you export that to audio, it doesn't export to click. So if you really want a Finale metronome all the way through, you kind of have to add another voice with a percussion marking, but you'll just get an idea here of how it's a nice idea to let people know what the pitch is and the metronome marking before they start. And just to be clear, this was not their performing edition. This is something they sang along with. I wanted to have the video. I was experimenting with putting this on YouTube, etc. I'm going to play a little bit again, and I'm going to tell you that people have complained about having the cursor because often the sound doesn't go at the same pace as the image. So I've now, since then, got rid of having cursors go across my screen. Just take a look and see if it works or not. So if I wanted something to be extra long, I had to just make that note longer. That's against everything I was taught about having a good scholarly edition, but for having a performing edition, will play this for my singers and then ask them, oh, is this note too short, this long? And they'll make notes, and then I'll make the edition accordingly. I can also, with the tempo marking in Finale and Sibelius, change the tempo of a piece. Okay. So one of the things we talked about that works really pretty well on, and many of you have seen this already, is drilling in class. So singers have been really exciting in school about, oh, hey, we can actually start working on diminutions together in rehearsal as a warm-up. So here's an example from Francesco Rognoni, Selva di Vari Passaggi, the beautiful 17th century treatise of how many ways can you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'll just give you an example, sort of modern, and you can do this along with me. And so here's just an example of, I'm going to do two things. I'm going to sing ya-da-dee-da-dum, and I'm going to ask you to sing along with me afterwards. So I'm going to go ya-da-dee-da-dum, try it, ya-da-dee-da-dum, and then la-da-da-da-dum, la-da-da-da-dum, la-da-da-da-da-dum, try it, la-da-da-da-da-dum, la-da-da-da-da-dum. La, da, 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 da. You get the idea. I can try all those different things. Now, I can either just do this and you're singing with me, or I can do it and have you try it back. Those can be, you can fit that to different styles. One person who's great, you'll see at the bottom of the screen, is Dr. Julia Hunt Nielsen, has something called COVO, which is community vocalization. And you can check her out. She's in the Bay Area, but she does something, I think, twice a week of actually having people warm up. So I can do that, but I can also be really kind of wonky about it and say, I'm going to give you 2 metronome markings, and then you're going to come along and sing along yourself. Great. I'm going to ask you to do this with me one more time. I can't hear you. If I have you in screen, I can pretend I hear you. I see you, right? But I'd like you to really try singing on la, 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 just to see if you feel that you can see how it functions. Great. And I'm going to do this one more time, just vocally live here. La, 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Okay, if I'm a more beautiful singer, you'll be happier singing with me. And that's one of the benefits. If you have somebody good teaching you, you can also enjoy singing or playing along with them. But so that's just the concept of the idea of drilling.
Adam, we had one question. Someone asked what the singers were using to record themselves.
That's a good question. Most of them were using their phones. I believe they were just using iPhones or whatever phone they had. I can say that what we've done is we use our iPhone and we bought a setup for like $250, a Shure Vid 88 camera that connects to the phone. But most people just had their phone and either the phone microphone and camera or a cheap mic to go along with it. The real trick there, and the reason I showed Madre dei Peccatori, which I think is a good example, is the more you have something very clear that they're going to sing and they know exactly what they're singing or playing with, the more likely they will be together. That's why I also like the idea of having a metronome marking, like a click track. But okay, so on May 1st, San Francisco Early Music Society started having 7 workshop classes each weekend, along with a bunch of other workshops are doing this. And so our very first one for May 1st was talking about music for May Day. And here's an example of a score from Dufay. And I lost my metronome marking along here in early days, but just to give you an example, and this again is in my mean tone, which is designed by Jason Yoshida, and I'll talk to you about how I do that. You may not like this tuning, but there are many other possibilities. So here we go. This is using an audio file, an MP3. Great, and I'm going to ask you to go ahead and sing along, pick a voice. And you see the metronome marking is a little tricky, it's not there, so that's one issue. Okay, here we go. Thank you. One thing I've noticed is since I'm doing this in an unspontaneous way, not a live performance, if I want to have a slower time through and a faster time through, I have to design that. If I want performers to sing a form fix form, so at measure 15 to go back to A again, I actually have to make the movie of the audio of an actual fully through composed version of the song, but that's also possible. So another way of doing this that people have enjoyed is to actually be joined by live performers. Now, I'll tell you a couple of things about this. One of the reasons I started making all these audio files and scores was because I was actually not able to perform because I seemed to have caught something like the virus and I was out of it. So I couldn't play. Rotem started recording by herself as Rotem 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Rotems. And so this is my first time back playing. And we're just playing 2 voices. The audience has the score. You don't have it, but I'm just going to give you a little snippet. And we've invited the audience to the other members online to be reading the score and play along with us and add the 3rd voice if they like. Forgot to add our little count. Rotem now always counts in 1, 2, 3, and we're ready to go, right? One thing I've found is that when we're working with people and participants in classes, they enjoy playing live, but they also enjoy having something to work. So I kind of have a progression where I like to build starting with, here is an audio file and a score of something that's really precise with a metronome mark and click in, and then you can join it live. And so here's another way of just thinking about that. Get the idea. So having a video of a live performance to play along with doesn't have to be video, but you have visual cues. And I shouldn't be talking while the music's going on. Okay, so this raises another issue. You're making examples, and this is one of those places where the normal world is bumping up against the online Zoom world. And you may remember Marshall McLuhan in the Gutenberg Galaxy, in his book, said that this new technologies start out by looking like old technologies. The first printed Bible looked like old manuscripts, and things change. Well, here's a PDF of an 8.5 by 11 edition. So here's an 8.5 by 11 paper. If I share the 8.5 by 11 paper on the screen, I have to scroll up and down, but here it makes it kind of small to see. So what are the ways you deal with this? First of all, you can put it in landscape, or you can stretch it to fit the screen. So here's another edition of the same song, an anonymous 15th century chanson, En attendant, with a wider screen. So you can get more on there. I could probably format this so the notes are a little easier to see because they get kind of tiny here. But if I want people to actually be seeing it on the screen, another option is to make it large enough and to actually have page turns. Page turns, of course, are tricky. Somebody's reading along, they can get lost right there. But this is also, for our classes, considered an enhancement for people who already have a score in front of them on paper as well. So I'll talk in a moment about page turns, but here is the first part of that. And I'm just going to show you one other thing. Here's the score that you see in front of you. But if I want you to hear that click track, what do? I actually insert two measures of metronome mark. I like to have them pitched, but not be exactly the same as the music. So as I said earlier, Finale does not export metronome clicks to audio. So I know that Jason Yoshida adds an extra track with like a Glock kind of bell, a percussion sound underneath. So you can also do that. But now I'm going to do something embarrassing. This is my first ever attempt at one of those web tutorials, and I'm going to put on, as David Simmons Wood says, my golf voice to show how I export a Finale file to audio. You'll notice here that I have inserted two measures with a pitched metronome marking for En attendant. Now I also will export this as an audio file. I can choose WAV or AIFF. I'll choose the former and save it on the desktop. Later, I will convert that to an MP3 so that it's not as large a file. Okay, so that's really embarrassing for me, but you get the idea. You can make an audio file of something. Also, I'm starting to experiment. I think it's going to be for everybody, using little modules of information that's not synchronous. I did this because if I were to go out of my program and do this on Finale, it might crash. Who knows what kinds of things will happen. So there you go. Now, another thing is, the question is, I've told you I use temperaments. And the reason I use the mean tone temperament is many of our recorder players are playing Prescott recorders that are in quarter comma mean tone. And so I got a little bit tired, and my singers were at 415, and I also wanted to have something there. So Jason Yoshida showed me a nice, cool trick for turning Finale to have different temperaments. And I'm going to, again, show you a little web tutorial. This will be on the record so you can have it later. But basically, I'm going in and choosing an instrumentation that has both a possibility of changing the temperament and the pitch. And so here I go. Jason Yoshida has taught me how to have my Finale file play in temperaments and in pitches. Normally, I just choose acoustic bass at 440. But Jason has showed me I can do something else. I go up to MIDI audio. I click, instead of on play finale through MIDI, I click play finale through audio units. It sets that up. And then I click again on MIDI audio, go to audio units, banks and effects. And I choose aria player. And I hit the pencil to edit it. And Jason has suggested a lovely sound, harp KS. Just nice 15th century harp sound. But then if you notice here, I can choose 440 or 415. I can't choose every pitch in the world. And over here in File, for the scale file, its default is equal temperament, but Jason has designed a quarter comma mean tone. They have their own, and I choose that. And then my file will be playing at mean tone. Okay, so this is just to give you an idea. It's a pretty bad tutorial, and I think you will see the screen better than you see it here if you're just looking at it later. But the point is that you can actually make this file sound more the way you would like to, and you're not just stuck with equal temperament grand piano. So here is now en attendant with the page turn. And you'll notice what I've done, and this is, I can do this on Keynote or PowerPoint. I design a build. That's a whole other tutorial. I'm not going to get into it here. We can talk about it later, but I design a build where I have page turns, and I have the page here, then the music starts is the next build, and the next start is the page, one page disappears while the other appears on a click. So here we go. You can sing along, by the way, or play along if you've got an instrument, because you're going to hear the pitch, and I'd like you to do that so you get a sense, oh, does this work? See how it works. One suggestion I'll also make that I forgot to do here is if you are a presenter doing this and using these and you're on Zoom, you know that you have all these screens on the side, and all those pictures of all the people on the side tend to cover part of your PowerPoint. It's never a bad idea to shift things over from the center so that you actually have a space that's left blank so that little camera screen doesn't cover what you're trying to show. You could say, oh, at measure 5, it's like behind David Simmons' wood there. So it never hurts to format it that way as well. So that's with a page turn on clicking. Now the clicking can be different based on how the internet happens, etc. So another way of doing it, which is a little less flexible, is to do it with a page turn that's timed. So I actually know that we are 26 seconds is the first page of music by the way I've set the tempo. And so I'm going to hold my hands up here and I'm just going to click it, and I'm going to do the no hands version. It happens by itself. Great. Once you've done a build like that, you can actually click up arrow and start again it as well. You say, you want to try it again, etc. So I have chosen to use Finale because I've worked with it many years. I'm better at Finale than I'm at Sibelius. I've spent a lot of time working on it now for singers and instrumentals to play along with, in part because I wasn't able to record. A lot of people feel it's much more exciting to play with a live performance. And so absolutely. But again, I like to use them in combination. Here is using Sibelius from a sort of a Sibelius, not an advanced Sibelius user. I didn't mess around with the instrument selection, and I'm still not clear of how good Sibelius is at doing different temperaments. I think to go at 415 or 465, you have to actually transpose it a half step. But here's a movie with a cursor, and take a look, sing along again, play along, see how it feels, and watch the cursor. Does it go at the right time? Plus about Sibelius is you can export a Sibelius file into a video and it does the page turns for you. The minus is you don't choose where those page turns are very easily. Another plus is that it's very clear. Another minus is it's not quite as flexible to do manually. It's easier, but not quite as flexible as Finale can be, if you know Finale. Okay, so here's an example of it without a cursor after I show you how you make an audio file, a video file of Sibelius. So here's just another bad tutorial for exporting a Sibelius file as a video. So here's my little score of Sibelius. You notice this has a little paper grain in the background. That takes up a lot of space on a presentation and can jumble things up, make the image not as clear. So here is just a video of me. It's very simple to export this to a video. After I've made my score on Sibelius, I can export it as a video. I go to File on the upper left-hand corner. I go down to Export. I choose Video, and you'll notice here I use score paper texture. Don't want to use that. And personally, I don't like to show the playback line because some people don't like it. I use show only these staves instead of the score layout because it has a little better resolution. I go to the full high definition, and then I scroll down and I export it. Done. All right, so that's the easy part of Sibelius, and I will now show you exactly the video that came out based on that. And you see I chose to have no background. I also chose showing the parts instead of the page score, because if you see the page score again, it's lots of little notes. So here it is. If I want to do things like have you play one of the voices and only two of the other ones are sounding, I can mute it on Finale or Sibelius, or I can make another file. I know that Mio Aoki is also doing things where she can, with Audacity, remove and add voices and metronome markings right away. So that's really cool. And I'm looking forward to seeing that in action. But I can also make these like music -1. I can make any number of videos with one of the voices not sounding, etc. And so let's see, I think I'm at the point of asking you if you have any questions.
Adam, there's a question.
Yes.
Not clear how to do the no hands page turn. Can you embellish?
Okay, yes. So I didn't embellish because So first of all, it's in Keynote is a little different than how you do it in Finale, but now I'm going to go ahead and do what I said I wouldn't do, which is I'm going to go into my Keynote, which is again, Macintosh's version of PowerPoint. It's similar in PowerPoint, and I can try to show you that in a minute, although I'm terrible at it. So here I have my version with the page turn, right? And so what I've done is I actually have two files here, two images, and I drop one in, and I drop the other one in. I use you can make them be exactly the same place you want to, but let me move them off a little bit. And then I have my sound file. So you see I have three different files. And what I do is I have an animate thing. And so I choose to have my first page is just going to stay there. My video, my sound file is going to be my first. I build it in. So I can change it. I want to start audio, basically build in, right? There it goes. And then the second page, I have the second page appear as the third build. And I do that while I have the first page disappear. It's called a build out. Now I can go in here and see the build order. You'll notice it says, okay, start audio as number 1, and then disappear and appear of page 1 and page 2 happen at the same time. I can have it happen on click, with, after. I can do it timed, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'm going to show you this again in PowerPoint as well. And so just now I've de-set these off so you can see these kind of a little bit off. Here's page 1. And then there's page 2. So I've made them so you can't see that difference on the screen. Does that help? I'm going to show that as well in PowerPoint very quickly, if that's okay, because I think more people work in PowerPoint. Keynote is like a wonderful PowerPoint for dummies like me who really love having their intuitive Mac. But let's look at actually the same thing now on my PowerPoint presentation. Here I have the same thing. And I look at this one, I go to transitions. And the transitions, I click on these. And if I click on the page, you'll see that I have things that are, I can have it on mouse click. Up here, it can go after a certain amount of time. So when I go to the one that's on a timed page turn, up here, I go to my transitions. And again, I'm not as good as this, so you have to forgive me. You see I have little numbers up here. This tells me, oh, this is going to happen.
Adam, I don't think
everybody's seeing it because I forgot to share my PowerPoint, didn't I?
Yes, exactly.
Oh my goodness,
Thank
I'm
you.
just yakking away. Thank you. See, that's what happens when you leave your safe space. So, okay. So with I'm basically doing the same thing with PowerPoint. If you notice here, I have little numbers here. I build things in by transitions, and I can have the animations, and I can have something appear up here in the upper right-hand corner. I can have emphasis effects to make them do weird things, and I can have exit effects. So basically, I'm building them in and out. So the page click is by doing it on a click, and I can also have it done. So here I can have it with previous, on click, etc., or I can have it done after a certain amount of time. So if I go after previous, and I can type in a duration. So here's a delay of 26 seconds I added in there in the delay sign. Again, I'm not as good at PowerPoint, but just to give you a sense, you can actually put in a piece of paper, a PDF, put another PDF on top, and decide what order they appear and disappear. And you can script it as your own personal animated film. Somebody's going to have to fix this part of the tutorial for me later, David, help somebody. But the point is that you have so many possibilities for how you would like to present the material. And the better you get at this, it starts to be fluid. I can do this pretty quickly. Other questions?
Yeah, quick question, Adam. Is there a reason why you use animations rather than play audio across slides?
Yes, there's two reasons. One, when I've gotten used to having people, if you are scrolling across, people see it as it scrolls and they're forced to follow it like they're rowing a boat across the water. They can't look forward or backwards. And so people read music differently. I'm actually looking farther forward when I read than the scrolling happens. So you have to have a fairly long scroll, and it's hard to hit a moving target. The other reason is that scrolling movies from Finale, for instance, I have to go in and save it as I have to go in and load Soundflower on my computer and set up my mics to be an internal mic, not the mic I'm using, et cetera. And then I make a QuickTime movie of it. It's pretty work intensive. It's fine to do it, but in the end, it's not worth it for me, the trouble of doing that when I see that I'm actually happy to see the whole page rather than the page running by, which forces me to do it the way that page wants me to do it as it's running by.
Another quick question. Do you have any tips for being able to play off the metronome so that you can add retards, etc.?
Oh yes, that's absolutely. In both Finale and Sibelius, you can choose a metronome marking. You can choose a time change. So I'll just give you an example. If I'm in Sibelius, let me see if that opens up quickly enough. I go to a measure and I enter a time change, and it actually changes. You won't hear a metronome mark unless you have a metronome mark chosen, or if you have another voice clicking along. So I'm just opening one here. I'm going to show you, if it works, that in Madre de Peccatori, I'm going to share this with you from in Sibelius. Here's a Sibelius file, and you'll notice that at a certain point, this music goes into triple right here at measure 17. So what I do is I actually go in and I actually, now have I forgotten how to do it? I go in and I pick a text actually for a tempo change. I'm going to find it. So I'm going to go in for styles and pick a tempo change. I don't know if you see that. And then I click here, and guess what? I'm going to click option 5. No, that's not it. I'm going to click, while I'm in the tempo change, I have to find the actual, I'm going to double click on it, and it's going to give me, oh, I'm going to try it here. I'm going to make the whole note, and I hit equal sign, and I'm going to have the whole note now go to 247. So let's see what happens if I play this back at you now, okay? And hopefully this will work. Even if you don't hear it, you'll see it. And I'll put this in scroll. In panorama view, just so you can see. So let's take it at the beginning and see what happens. It's pretty slow tempo, but I can change it at the beginning. Let's even go ahead and change that at the beginning. Can you guys hear that?
They can't hear it.
Okay, you can't hear it. So I won't be able to fix that, but let's go ahead and get it closer, and you're going to see how quickly it changes just from visual, I think, if this works. Cross your fingers. Just watch that cursor. You get the idea. So yes, you can change your tempi in both Finale and Sibelius. People do it all the time in Hollywood, make the click track change, and I will confess I'm still learning how to kind of do that in a way I like. Questions, other?
I don't know if this has already been answered, but one question is, for me, the cursor was still slow when you had us sing. Have you figured out how to make it match the sound?
No, and that's why the only thing that will match the sound is an actual metronome marking. So I will show that and I had a little problem with it, and I was trying to get this prepared for today, and I'm usually pretty good at at Finale, but my Finale kind of did weird things. So I'll just share this with you in a moment. Simply put, anything that's visual, that is visual animated, will not necessarily come to you at the same pace as the music audio will. So what I can do with En Attendant, for instance, hopefully, is I can, my finale is not working this morning, so that's why I say have things, don't be spontaneous because they might not work, have it up there. So what I do is I just add a voice and I put another voice in, and that will actually be a metronome marking whatever my tempo change is. What device did we use for recording my road times? Hi, Joan Kimball. Nice to see you. So the device we use is basically our iPhone, and we bought a Shure Vid 88, SHURE Vid 88 microphone that connects to your iPhone through like a Thunderbolt thing. And it's really, it has its own dedicated software. And then we recorded it with that. And then we put it in iMovie, and our son Eli edited it. So he's been doing the editing for us together. But iMovie is great for a couple of voices at the same time. But if you want to do a bunch more, you either have to record 2 and then another 2 together. If you have, you can only do a certain number of voices. That's why we've started to use Final Cut Pro as well at USC. So we can do as many voices as we want to. Other questions?
Okay, no more questions right now, Adam.
Okay. Maybe I'll just say that I kind of flew through these things, and this is more not a matter of like, oh, this is how you do each of these, or you should do it this way. Because again, I'm not using an iPad because my iPad has been absconded because we have 5 people taking 5 different video classes at the same time in the house. So it's not been an option to me, but the idea of using an iPad and using your pencil, using Fourscore is great. I will say that as much as it is a lot more work on the front end to make scores and to make things to use, but when you have what you want, then it's easier afterwards to deal with what the outcome is. You have to have it there for somebody to record what you want them to. One of my goals is not just to teach classes at SFEMS for this summer, but is also to get people to start, again, proof of concept, simple piece, recording themselves alongside so I can edit as many people as possible into one video.
Q&A, a couple, we have a question. You mentioned some of the things you're exploring, but what tech are you using, are you trying to use, or tech capabilities are you looking for after getting to this point?
Great question. As we move along, we are going to get closer and closer to having software and internet deal with latency issues. Latency is when one voice goes slow, it takes more time than the other. We're going to get in better shape to be able to actually perform together simultaneously and rehearse and perform. So that's definitely what I'm looking for. My sense is that I'm not suggesting these things will replace that. I'm suggesting these will be great tools for getting prepared for that even. For years in Hollywood, people have already been using click tracks to record somebody. So it's kind of a no-brainer, and I feel like I'm just even a beginner at it. I don't have lots of fancy software for that. Sometimes I feel like there are more things I'd be able to do with the software we have. So to more easily add something to the audio, to just more quickly do those things. But yeah, to have the software to be able to perform together, that's the ultimate goal.
And quick question was, I'm curious why you've not talked more about Jam Kazam. I mean, you did refer to that at the beginning, which so far seems to be the only platform that allows for real-time playing.
Absolutely. So Jason has been using Jam Kazam, and he called me all excited. He was able to have a ground-based jam session on Romanesco with a bunch of people from around California and somebody as far away as Maryland. So I downloaded it. And again, the issues with Jam Kazam are this. One, you have to have external mics and equipment. So you have to have a mic that goes both ways at the same time, so it's not bringing in sound and sending it back out, which slows things down. You have to be plugged into the wall and have a good internet. It's possible I do, but it's not something I can count on when I'm teaching a bunch of people. So for performing with 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 people, that's possible. But also if somebody's far away, if they're having a bad day. So Jam Kazam is definitely possible, but you definitely, mine will not work until I get the appropriate external. I'm not even there. I have to get the appropriate external mic. So I'm working on that, but it's not going to be an option for having a rehearsal where I've got 60 or 70 people wanting to follow along and play along together.
Thank you, Adam. And we do have a comment. Could EMA offer another webinar that was really basic in walking through the steps and recording performers, sending files and combining them in the video editing software? I mean, I think that's something that we can absolutely look at doing. I mean, I think we're trying to just keep up as far as we can with the changing, with what is available and most easily available to people. And this currently is, so that's something we could potentially do.
Well, that's a great question,
very
Karen.
Aware of the, yeah.
I think
I was just going to say the equity issues. There are a lot of equity issues in what Adam was talking about before. You know, we having to buy a lot of equipment, have the really great connection. So I think we're trying right now to focus on what most people are able to do with what they currently have. And we'll just add to that as we can. But then let's talk a little bit about the basic steps, Adam.
Right. This is really, really great question. And one of the things David Simmons-Wood and I talked about is that two responses to that. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. That one is that we gave a tutorial at SFEMS on the 5 species of counterpoint. Well, that's a lovely hour-long thing. It's going to be too much information in 1 hour for somebody to follow. And if you go to what everybody now does, every teenager does, is they go to how-to videos on YouTube. You're not going to see a how-to video on counterpoint that's an hour long doing all 5 species of counterpoint and all the rules of 15th century music. You're going to see a 5-minute video on here's first species, another 5-minute video on here's what you should do to, so you're going to see modules. So I'll say 2 things to that. You can, first of all, if you have a question, do embrace the how-to videos on YouTube. There are all kinds of things. I learned how to do a lot of this stuff just by going on, but think modularly. If you have a question, how do I do this? Separate it from the other questions, how do I do that? And those are really great questions to share, and David or I or somebody else may already have a resource you can go to for that. And I know I went pretty fast and went through a bunch of things. It wasn't to give you a full tutorial, but to show how many possibilities there are, and there are a bunch of others. But definitely any specific thing you do, break them down and what are the elements you want to know how to do. And I'm happy to try to figure out ways of answering that. David is a whiz. And we can also try to put up a list of good links to go to for those things.
Like Jam Kazam, there's software called Jamulus. I'll be interested to hear someday if there's a difference.
Yes, and there's some other ones as well. People are using, I've forgotten another one. So there's a bunch of those, and the only reason I don't talk about them today is because they're not yet practical for me in running classes with 30 to 80 people. So yes, I'm eager to see how those go. I feel like I'm still back in the 1930s on the software, so.
No more questions right now, Adam.
Cool. Hey, well, guys, I'll say one last thing, which is I don't know how much the issue of copyright is for any individual doing this. It is for us at SFEMS and at USC, putting things up that are copyright free. I can, or have permission, I can do live streaming, etc. But one of the things that has also been fascinating is that, once I can make an edition, I can do anything with it. I wanted to pull a magic trick and show you how I can turn a score upside down and show you how one voice when turned upside down is the same pitch patterns. That's the kind of stuff you can as well do and show to your students and really focus on things. So I guess one of the questions is what content you want to be sharing. And here's the big point, everything from the ground up. Don't try to do what you thought you were going to do, how you're going to do it. Let's just start from the beginning. What can I do and how many ways can I do it? So thank you, everybody. And thank you, Karen and EMA. And by the way, please donate to the relief fund. We want to get to that 100,000 because it's helping people in so many important ways. Karen, do you have a final word?
Thank you, Adam. There's the same thing as Adam just said. Well, thank you to Adam, of course, because we are being able to follow his work practically in real time and pass it on to you, all the work he's been doing over the last couple of months. And yes, please just consider donating to the Relief Fund. 6,500 to go before we hit the 100,000 mark. And as we raise money, we are distributing it pretty much as fast as it comes in. So if you like these sessions, just feel free to contribute a little bit to that, and every little bit helps. Thank you everybody for being here. It's really great to have you all on this call. It really is, so many of you. And it's now on the hour, just after the hour, and most of you are jumping onto another call because that's what our lives are like right now, Zoom call to Zoom call. So thank you all very much.
Thank you all.